Good morning, everyone. Jim Laird joining you live from Diriomo, Nicaragua. As I always say, let me get Instagram going here. And it looks like we're live on Instagram. As I always say, it's a beautiful day here. And it truly is. It's a great time of year here. Interesting morning. It's the day after the US elections, which is always interesting. I really make an effort not to talk about politics because, especially with today's current environment, neither side. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm a what we call libertarian. I'm a big fan of Ron Paul. Huge fan of the Constitution. Huge fan of individual responsibility. A huge fan of freedom of speech, even if it's offensive. That's just kind of how I roll. So I kind of piss off people on both sides. Um, so I try not to talk politics whatsoever because there was a time not that long ago where you could have a conversation with someone and agree to disagree on certain things, and it never became personal. But now everything becomes personal. It becomes a name calling contest, and it's just not worth it. So the one thing I will say that's really interesting, I'm a huge student of history, and if you look at the significant, whether it's military generals, presidents, prime ministers, like there's no, like, in order to have the kind of personality it takes to be a ruler over a large number of people, a conqueror, a general, um, these people are not what we call squeaky clean people. Like, they have certain personality traits that are not necessarily desirable, but needed. People like Napoleon, Winston Churchill was not the greatest person on the block, but he was able to get the job done. Um, Most of your major world leaders and high level officials are highly successful, driven people, are just weird people that have some weird personality traits, and they're not always good. So I think this expectation that somebody has to be squeaky clean in order to be a leader is a little unrealistic. I will say, um, I worked in Aspen for like 6 or 7 years, and so I've spent a lot of time around celebrities. I know a lot of interesting things about celebrities and different situations and et cetera, et cetera. Definitely won't get into detail on that, but I've met a lot of prominent world leaders. Uh, Donald Trump used to stay at our hotel. He used to do his first shows at our hotel. This is back in the late '90s. Him and his wife, and he treated my staff like I was the head doorman at a major five-star hotel in Aspen. He treated my staff wonderfully well. He tipped very, very, very well. He was very generous, was like, always talked to everybody, whether it was like the ballet kid that's like 19 years old or me, always made you feel important, asked your asked like, what do you like about working here? He was very, very personable. I can't say that for the rest of the people I've dealt with some of the major world leaders and some of the most prominent, particularly a certain couple who have both held very high positions. I will not say their names, but they definitely were not generous. They did not tip, and they were rude and entitled. So I will say that about Donald Trump. He treated everyone well. You might not like his personality. The one thing that I'm really happy about, obviously, the future of health and well-being. Your health and well-being is up to you. It doesn't matter who's in power. The choices you make every single day, getting outside, um, you know, treating yourself well, getting exercise, setting a good example for your friends and your family, that is all on you. It doesn't really matter who's in Washington to a certain extent. The one thing I'm really excited about is most of my career has been spent training women, female athletes, women in general. And one of the girls I've worked with for a long time just finished her career 5 years at the University of Cincinnati as a goalkeeper, a keeper in soccer. I helped her get her in a better place so she could continue to play. She was in a pretty rough place when she was in high school, and we got her back in order, and we got her in a better place so she could finish out her career. She's done a great job at the University of Cincinnati. One of my mentors was the first female head strength and conditioning coach at Cal Poly of the whole program. One of my mentees, I might say. So I've got tons of female athletes that I've worked with over the last 30 years, and I love women's sports. Like when I was at the University of Arizona, there's nothing better than like going to a softball game and all the chants and the cheers. And I mean, the ladies have a good time. So at least with this result, I know that Title IX women's sports is going to be protected, because you can hang me upside down, burn me on a cross, and not on a cross. I shouldn't have said that. You can burn me upside down on a stake. There's a big difference between biological men and biological women. And allowing biological men to compete with women in women's sports is outrageously dumb. Okay, I'll say it. So I now that you know, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next several weeks and whether it'll be a smooth transition or what will happen. But I know that women's sports are going to get protected. They're going to put some rules in place, and they need to come up with something. They need to have like a different division or a different league. But allowing biological men to compete with biological women is just not a good idea. It's a totally different animal. As someone that's trained, men and women for like, 25, almost 30 years now, it's a night and day comparison. The Williams sisters said it best, or I can't remember if it was Serena or Venus. What would happen if you played on the men's circuit? She's like, I'd get destroyed. It's a totally different sport. So protecting women's sports is a big deal to me, because I've seen how hard these ladies work. And then all of a sudden to have their entire sport turned upside down is completely just insane to me. So that's one thing. The other thing that I'm really kind of excited about is the people that Trump is surrounding himself with. I'm a big fan of RFK Jr. I have been for a very long time. And I think getting RFK Jr. is going to help get people aware of what they're eating, standing up to some of the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry. If it happens, I really hope it does. They've already, they had a court ruling on fluoride. So hopefully we'll get the fluoride out of the water. That would be amazing. As someone who's traveled the world, I live here in Nicaragua. I can go to McDonald's here in Nicaragua. I can go to a fast food restaurant here in Nicaragua. I can eat a pint of ice cream here in Nicaragua, and it's completely different than if I go to a fast food place in the United States. You look at a bottle of Coca-Cola, there's a whole bunch, like there's only a few ingredients here. In the US, there's like so many things. So there's a lot of stuff in our food that doesn't need to be there. Hopefully RFK Jr. can get some people in charge that aren't bought and paid for by certain industries to kind of clean that up a little bit. And I think putting people in charge of health and wellness who actually take care of themselves, like Robert Kennedy works out, he takes care of himself, his entire family, his uncle, his father were huge proponents of physical education. Like JFK was a big advocate of phys ed, getting kids to play outside. RFK Jr. is a huge advocate of the outdoors. Having people in charge of these departments who actually take care of themselves and actually are fit and in good health, I think is very, very critical. And then I really love the fact that they're bringing in somebody like, I don't know what to think of Elon Musk. I mean, he wants to put brain chips in everybody, and then he's got all these satellites flying around, which I'm probably going to end up getting one of the mobile, the Starlink mobile things, because being here where I am, the internet can be a little dodgy sometimes, as you've probably discovered. So having good morning, Abby, how are you? Having that available to me is yeah, I agree, Jim. Adding pharmaceutical ads on TV will definitely help. I just think having some independent people that actually, like, I've read several books on this, like, especially with certain things, like certain applications that they're mandating. There's never been any true safety studies on any of these things. So getting some people in there that are just not in the vested interest of the pharmaceutical industry to actually provide some resistance, whether these things are needed or not, is highly, highly positive. And the censorship thing, like, it's insane. Like, we had a video taken down that was unlisted on YouTube where Dr. Stillman just gave his opinion on something that people have been taking for a very long time. And there isn't really any scientific evidence that it even works. So somebody asked, "Hey, what would you do? Would you take this personally?" And he's like, no, after looking at all the research and looking into it, it's like not something I would take. That video, unlisted on YouTube, not listed, not public, was immediately deleted. Unbelievable, the draconianism that's going on. Um, like, for example, during the beer bug, um, I remember having Facebook posts taken down and being, like, punished and banned on Instagram, and I still probably am in Instagram jail. I don't get the kind of views on Instagram that I used to, uh, for recommending people go outside. And it's crazy that um they basically censored me for telling people to go outside. It's absolutely nuts. And now looking back, that should have been the advice that they should have been giving everybody. Get outside, get your sun, go to the gym, be active. Those are all things that would have helped people. Obviously, if you're really sick, stay home, but still go outside, get fresh air, get sunshine. That makes total sense, right? So, yes, yes, that's true. There's a lot of pay to play in the media. I think the biggest thing with the media is the thing I worried about is if and who knows, like, what can happen. Anything can happen these days, but it seems to be that Trump is going to win. But they were really talking, like, in Canada, going after podcasts, going after the social media platforms. Like, imagine if you didn't have Twitter or X, where they could basically, if you look at, like, the stuff they were doing years ago, like contacting Facebook and saying, you can't, any post about this is shut down. Any post about this is shut down. Even this time through, there was, times where they suppressed certain things, like Joe Rogan's interview with Donald Trump was suppressed on the search engines, but it still got how many millions of views because of X. So I think podcasts, I think a lot of these social media platforms will act as the legacy media is going to actually have to start reporting and looking into facts, or they're just going to die. I mean, that's basically it. Like, um, people are going to go look for information with people that actually do research and actually ask questions. So I have some hope that somebody like RFK Jr. is going to make some big changes. I really like Tulsi Gabbard. I wish RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard would have run. I thought that would be an incredible ticket. I think she's incredibly centered, balanced, military experience, very, very capable, very, very well put together, well spoken. I really like her, and I like RFK as well. So I think having them involved is going to be wonderful. The big thing I really liked is Elon Musk and talking to Ron Paul, and actually, my sister worked in DC for. I gotta actually turn my battery bank on here so that I don't run out of battery. With the beauty of live stuff. Um, my sister worked in DC forever, like, for most of her adult life, and she would tell me the waste. Like, she was high up in the Senate, and all the bills, and just the insane waste of money that is going on there. So if we can at least, like, trim a little bit of something off the top, um, getting a guy like Ron, I love Ron Paul. I've loved him for years. He stood by his principles. He's never wavered on that. So I'm a huge fan of his. So if we can get some people in there that are actually going to make a difference on like, hey, we don't need to be spending all this money on this. I mean, we spend more money on healthcare and more money on education than anyone in the world, and we get some of the worst outcomes. Um, so, but let's bring this back to you. I think, in the end, the responsibility comes on you. I think the government's job is to get out of the way. It's really funny. The Amish showed up in Pennsylvania in record numbers because the government has been going after the Amish farmers with the raw milk and really making their lives miserable. So they stood up and they said, "Hey, enough is enough." And so the Amish were like came out in massive droves like they never have before, which is really interesting to me. But having a government that actually gets out of the way and lets people, make their own choices and then sets the playing field up so people can have success. But I think a big part of it is keeping these big food entities and these pharmaceutical entities in line so that they're not creating lifelong customers um, based on making people sicker, and then getting people to take ownership for their own health by having some of these leaders in the health and wellness area actually lead by example. um, I think would be huge. So I think just by having somebody like RFK that works out, takes care of himself, talks about it publicly, um, would be huge, huge for just improving the overall attitude and the overall environment of health in general across the entire country. It really starts at the top with the attitude, anyways. I'm hoping that this swing, this shift, hopefully the transition will be nice and smooth. And I mean, there's a lot of people that have a lot of hatred and a lot of anger towards, Mr. Trump. Um, it is what it is. But hopefully this transition will be smooth, and then hopefully we can start. Um, I think people's attitudes, a lot of people, particularly that have been frustrated with the last several years. Uh, Yeah, well, Dr. Cruz has been working on amending the Constitution in El Salvador, which is really cool. And I know Dr. Cruz is in contact with RFK Jr. constantly. He's kind of in that circle. And, I think he'll have some influence on, especially with the circadian rhythm stuff. I know Dr. Jack Cruz has been working hard getting screens that are better, phones and computers that have screens that actually don't screw up your circadian rhythm, which I think is super important. So that would be wonderful to have some amendments to the Constitution that actually guarantee your health freedom, guarantee that you won't be experimented on as a guinea pig. I know I would appreciate that, and so hopefully things are going in the right direction. But you never know with politics. I always look at this stuff with a grain of salt because you really don't know what's really going on behind the scenes. Is this all an act like the WWE, like the wrestling? Um, I it there's some really good people involved here, so I really want to say there's some genuine people that are really want to do the right thing. So I'm hoping that you know um, they will be able to keep the machine at bay and at least keep the military industrial complex and all the things that Eisenhower warned us about under wraps. But in the end, it's up to you to be the leader in your family. It's up to you to build relationships with your local farmers. You still need to do that. The government is not going to save you on either side, regardless of left or right, regardless of who you are. Um, Hopefully, they make it easier for you to have an equal playing field. That's really the role of that should be the true role of government, and it's your job in the end to make the final action, take action. and make these decisions for your family. But your number one responsibility is take care of yourself first, take care of your family second, and then take care of those around you and build community so that you can support each other in times of need. And then the government's there to make sure that things are more or less fair, and provide some oversight from time to time when needed. But really, everything I think needs to happen mostly on the local level. So that's one of the biggest travesties of um, what's currently happening is the erosion of community and the erosion of dividing people through, whether it's through their sexuality or through their skin color, or dividing people based on their behavior, the group they're in, as opposed to saying, hey, we're all here. We want to improve. We want to have better families. What do we have in common? I'm going to judge you based on the content of your character. I'm going to judge you based on the relationship I have with you, or do you provide me with things that are beneficial, and do I provide things with you that are beneficial? We might agree to disagree on certain things, but that's none of my business. you know um, I will work with you and I will have a relationship with you as long as you treat me well and I treat you well. The golden rule, right? So that's what it's really all about. And it's about making friends in your local community. It's about building connections and, controlling the things you can control. So I hope you have a great day. I hope you make choices today that make your life essentially better, because that's basically the end of the day. Your habits are what build your health, your wellness, your resiliency. So start taking a look at your habits, what you do. Like right now, I'm done with this call. I'm going to go for a little walk. I'm going to sit. I'm going to take some breaths. I'm going to breathe. I might go get in the pool for a minute. Then I'm going to come back and do about another half an hour worth of work. And then I'm going to go out and walk again and get in the sun. This afternoon, I'm going to go to the gym, going to lift some weights. And, you know, these are all decisions that I make every single day to help maintain my health and vitality as I age. So have yourself a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Regardless of what side of the fence you're on, remember, your health and your wellness depends on you. It doesn't matter who's in charge. The decisions you make every day are the ones that really matter in the long run. So don't forget to get outside. Have a wonderful day.